Joining us here in the studio is Safiya Jafari Simmons. She's the wife of a police officer and the CEO and chief strategist of SJS Consulting, a Washington, D.C. public relations company. With us from our newsroom is Chanelle Hardy. She's an attorney and executive with the National Urban League, a leading U.S. civil rights organization. Also with us is the award-winning journalist and commentator, Roland Martin. Thanks to all of you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Nice to be here. Good to be here.
Roland, we have often heard that the first step towards solving a problem is to recognize that you have a problem. Was this speech by Director James Comey an admission that American law enforcement has a serious race problem?
Well, absolutely, and I think it was critically important for him to do that. But here's what I find to be interesting. The fact of the matter is, if Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the United States, Comey's boss, had he given this speech, it would have been a race speech. He would have been ripped by the right. He would have been criticized for bringing up the issue of race. And so what does it say in America that it takes a white man to speak to this issue to validate the issue? And it's very interesting. I've heard that from folks inside DOJ. I've heard it from the outside as well. And so that's even a whole separate issue that, all of a sudden, Comey, being a white male, says it. Wow, awesome speech. I guarantee you, had Holder given this exact speech, it would not be received the same way Comey's speech is being received.
Okay, I will get to that point of what the speech achieved in just a moment, but Safiya, you are the wife of a police officer. You say goodbye to your husband every morning. He gets out there on the streets. You don't know what kind of dangers he faces, some of them violent. His life could be threatened. What did you make of the director's speech?
You know, I think as a PR professional, I am with Roland on the messenger part of it. But I think for me, as an officer's wife, the part that I really latched onto was the part where he said, seeing has to go both ways. And I think traditionally when we have these conversations about law enforcement in the communities that they serve, we fail to see the color of the officers, because that is an issue. The fact that the officers have families, they have responsibilities. They are not just trained to be robots. And I think sometimes the argument comes up that, well, they receive all this training, they should be able to better handle these situations. A candid conversation does have to be had about the level of training that they get, the resources that they have, and the information that they don't have that could better equip them to be better law enforcement officers.
The fact of the matter is, they don't get the kind of training. I mean, the reality is, once they leave the police academy, that's pretty much it.
Right.
So you don't have the extensive training that is needed. It's an issue, also issue of trust. At the end of the day, you have to be able to trust the police officer. He must be able to, or he or she must be able to trust what's happening in the community. Yeah. And there's been decades of mistrust as a part of this. So when you're African American, and the moment you're born, you are automatically taught about that level of mistrust with police.
Right.
It's real.
I want to go to Chanelle in our newsroom. Chanelle, James Comey also made the point that law enforcement is not the root cause of this. He said police, minority communities, and the majority white community must share the blame. Do you agree with that?
I wish that we didn't have to use the term blame. I guess what I think that's more important is that we look at what real solutions look like. We've seen some really positive things. We've seen that actually police officers, the incidences of police officers being shot in the line of duty, while it's regrettable that it happens at all, is on a sharp decline. We also see that while we don't have the uniform numbers that we need, we actually are seeing troublingly high numbers of individuals who are being shot due to uses of excessive police force. So I think that it's important for us to really focus on the fact that people are losing their lives, that each time an additional individual, unarmed black man or woman, loses their life at the hands of law enforcement, it feeds into what Roland talked about in terms of that mistrust. And so it's really critical that we get to the root of these issues. And I think that's what's so important about the FBI director's speech. He really said, let's start to really address root problems, which is that we have some historically based, but currently definitely consistently troubling race relations challenges in our country.
Roland, the director used, well, what I would say was a pretty novel way of trying to get his message across. He quoted lyrics from a Broadway musical to say that, you know, people have inbuilt biases. Let's take a listen to what he had to say. We've actually got the Broadway musical itself, so let's watch this.
Everyone's a little bit racist sometimes. Doesn't mean we go around committing hate crimes.
Look around and you will find no one's really colorblind. Maybe it's a fact we all should face. Everyone makes judgments based on race.
What is the point of that, saying that everybody has these biases? It's inherent in us.
Because it's true. See, here's the problem that we have. This is the debate that we have right now. What is the problem? Racist, not racist. And so when anything comes up, you're either a racist or you're not a racist. But in between that, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Biases, perceptions, viewpoints, stereotypes, whether you are white and liberal, whether you are African American, whether you are an immigrant to this country. And so what we have been taught, what has been sort of in our DNA, what we witness when it comes to television and movies, when it comes to music, what we have witnessed when it comes to personal interactions, all of those things play a role in it. And so the reality is this here. As a black man, when I'm driving down the street, I know for a fact I don't have warrants. I know for a fact my insurance is paid. I know my tags are paid. But as a black man, if I see in the rearview mirror police lights, something all of a sudden is in the pit of my stomach that causes me to go, okay, hold up. I got license, I got insurance, what's this, what's that? It's a natural thing. And the reality is, I don't believe a lot of whites in this country have that exact same experience. They literally get to drive, and if they see a cop, hi, officer, what's the problem? As a black man, my dad told me, don't question police. White fathers tell their children, oh, you can ask for his name, his badge number. You tell a black guy in certain neighborhoods, ask the cop for his badge number, oh, there is going to be hell to pay. And so all of a sudden, that creates that tension. And so even before you get pulled over, there's tension. How that person walks up to you. Does that person, does a cop have his hand on his gun as he approaches you? Or does he simply approach you in a standard way? All of these things are brought to bear, and there's a difference when it comes to race. And when somebody understands the shoes that I walk in, it's a whole different feeling.
And can I just add, if it's okay,
yeah,
I think
go ahead,
that
Chanelle.
it doesn't come out of nowhere, right? I mean, we really have spent some time really developing a belief system that we can identify criminals. And one of the ways that we can identify criminals just by sight is by the color of their skin.
Right.
There's significant evidence that shows that the darker you are, there's a correlation into your sentence, the length of sentence you'll receive, the likelihood that you'll be picked up in immigration raid. So race really does, and the way that we've created it in everything from our television shows. I've seen interesting reports that show that watching local news actually increases the level of anti-black bias that you have. And so I think that that's really important to know. But I think it also gives us good news, which is the fact that we can also take steps to change bias. When we are exposed to positive images of black men, for example, it really does change that immediate reaction that someone has to all of that negative imagery.
There is a lot of stereotyping in the media.
I do want to jump in here because even though I agree, and I know my husband's a black man, I know what that feeling feels like, right? That gut reaction. One of the things, though, that I do want to say kind of in response to this historic evidence that we have, the reasons why we experience this, is that there is a responsibility, I feel, on the families. Because, yes, I'm raising a black man. I'm raising a son. My husband is an officer. But I think there is a role to play where you can teach our children. We can, yes, give them the reality of the situation. Historically, there's an issue here. But there's also responsibility that they not go into these situations feeling like victims. You know, I heard Mr. Martin say, you know, is the officer going to approach us in a standard way? Is he going to have his hand on his? There is no standard way. Every police district trains differently. Every officer is trained differently. And the same way that we want officers to see agency in us, we have to be willing to assign that same agency to them. They are all individuals. And no matter what your skin tone is, honestly, there is some small role you can play in how you react to and how you respect the authority of an officer.
But here's what's interesting. In New York, black cops themselves say when they are not in uniform, they are scared.
That's not just New York.
Right. I mean, so you have black cops who say, wait a minute, I'm a cop. I'm just like you. And there have been instances where black officers have been killed in the line of duty who were undercover because another cop said, oh, I thought that was a particular criminal. And so you really understand it. And real quickly to Chanelle's point, this goes beyond police. If you are a darker skinned CEO, studies have shown that the perception to you is different than if you're a lighter skinned CEO. So we have this issue of race is literally in the DNA of America. It has been in our system since the beginning of the country, and it goes beyond just police.
Okay, Chanelle, I'm going to come back to you, but we are going to have to take a break right now. When we come back, we'll have more on the relationship between U.S. law enforcement and communities of color. Stay with us. You're watching The Heat.